Welcome learners. I am Dr. Amuda from School of Management, Sastra University. I welcome you to the session Stores Material Accounting. How to account for the materials received in stores. Material accounting is a multifaceted activity, only a part of which is reflected in what we undermine as materials management, and the highly formula-based approach to materials control, purchasing, storekeeping, maintenance of stores ledger, ordering and material utilization. Unfortunately, these aspects are generally seen in compartments, and hence we are going to have a complete picture of the important element of cost and the way in which it has to be accounted for. Materials accounting is one part of the comprehensive materials management. The part that remains out of focus of material accounting is the one that is primarily concerned with managerial decision making methods and alternative approaches to the valuation and other practices to be adopted, and the possible economies of materials utilization in the overall productive framework of an organization. Aspects of planning, coordination, motivation and control of procurement, stocking, progressing and disposing are the parts of managerial activities in which materials accounting can bring in new vistas of operational economies which now remains almost totally underplayed. The primary basis for material accounting is the cost aspect. Cost for such purposes may be determined under any one of the assumptions as to the flow of costs. Materials are ordered on a continuous basis, and there is no prescribed procedure which can be used in the determination of material cost for accounting purposes. There are a number of standard practices with the combinations and variations, but the main objective is to clearly reflect the periodic performance. In order to determine the money value of materials on hand at any given point of time, the quantity of materials must be known and a value must be assigned to those quantities. The quantity may be obtained by counting or measuring, but the value assigned to the individual items must be based on one of the several accounting methods. This is important because the total money value of materials and the related cost can be significantly different if different methods are adopted. However, the records which are usually kept by the stores department have two main categories, that is, the records which is having only the quantity, and next one is the regular balancing of materials. For the purpose of stores accounting, the following records and documents are kept in. First one is the bin card, the stores ledger, the stock identification card, the materials received note, material acquisition slip, materials return slip and the material transfer note. We shall see all these records one by one in detail. First one is the bin card. Bin card is a record of the movement of materials against each kind of stock in respect of the daily transactions, which is attached to each bin or a shelf or any form of containers. So bin means a place where the goods are kept in. A bin may be a rack, or it may be a room, or it may be a shelf, or it may be a container, even if it may be an open yard. So a card will be attached to the bin, which is going to record the daily transactions. The one thing we have to keep in mind is only the quantities are recorded in the bin card, and this bin card is maintained inside the storeroom and it is attached over the bins. The daily receipts, issues and the balances of the materials must be recorded. So as and when the materials are received, it will be entered in the bin card, and when it is issued, once again it is entered and the balance on hand is given. So at any given point of time, the balance of materials in quantity can be easily referred with the help of this bin card. In this bin card, the levels of the inventories will also be mentioned. Say the maximum level, the minimum level, reorder level, danger level, average stock level, all these levels are maintained in the bin cards. So on seeing the bin cards, the storekeeper can easily identify when to reorder the materials. So the maximum inventory is said to be the maximum level of units that can be maintained to avoid excessive stocking. The minimum level is the level to be maintained to avoid the interruptions in the production. Then average level will be in between the minimum and the maximum level. Reorder level will be the level at which the order should be placed again. So the difference between this reorder level and the minimum level will be the lead time. And once again, we will have the danger level also. The danger level should not be achieved or attained because it will affect the production. So these maximum, minimum, reorder, average, danger, safety, etc. all these levels will be maintained in the bin card itself. So on seeing the bin cards, the maximum levels, the minimum levels can be compared with the existing level, and you can easily identify where the present level exists, whether it is in between the maximum and minimum or it is more than the maximum, etc. So it is an essential record that is kept inside the stores mainly for the following purposes. First one is the exact position of the materials can be easily known against each receipt of the materials and also the issue of the materials. Then the information pertaining to the stock levels and the quantity balance on hand can be immediately known. Then code numbers and full description of materials are given. It also serves as a check on the store's ledger and helps in the physical verification of the stores. We can see a specimen of the bin card, wherein the bin card consists of the code number, that is we have already seen it in codification, wherein the codes will be given either numerical or alphabetical or alphanumerical. So the codes will be given for the easy identification and simplification and standardization, and the bin number will be given. The levels of the inventory, maximum, minimum and the reorder levels will be given, and the stock ledger folio, the page number in which the particular item appears in the store's ledger. So store's ledger folio will also be mentioned. The store's ledger will be maintained outside the stores, and it includes the quantity and also the quality, which we will see it in the next type or next document. So we will have the receipt column, wherein the date of receipt will be given, the GRN number, goods received note number will be given, the quantity received will be given, and again in case of issue, we will have the date of issue, MRS, material requisition slip number will be given, the quantity that is given as the issue will also be mentioned, and the balance will be written on the last column. So this bin card maintains only the quantity, and this will be attached with the each bins, and the levels of inventory can be written on the bins at any point of time. The present level of inventory or the existing level of the inventory can be easily compared with the various levels of inventory, and then the decision regarding the control over the stock, that is if it is excessive we can minimize, and if it is below the minimum we can increase the purchase, and the date of reordering can be easily known. So the control over the inventory is said to be easily made. Next is the store's ledger. The store's ledger will include both the value and the quantity. Once again, this store's ledger will have the code number, bin number and the various levels of inventory, namely maximum, minimum and the reorder level, and sometimes the average level will also be given. And the rate at which it has been issued to the production departments will also be entered here. So when bin cards did not show about the value of the materials received, store's ledger shows the value of the materials that is received and issued. So when in store's office this stores ledger will be maintained. That is not maintained inside the stores. So the stores ledger will give a following information: the supplier's name, addresses, then the quantity ordered each time, the invoice number and the price of the item that is received, then expected delivery with the due date. We'll have a remarks column. So if it is delivered that is not up to the date that has been promised, then the remarks will be given in the remarks column stating that the delivery is not as per the schedule, and the levels of the various stocks can be easily known. Now we shall see the difference between the bin card and the stores ledger. What are all the major differences? The first and the foremost difference between the bin card and the stores ledger is, bin card shows only the quantity, but the stores ledger shows the quantity and the value. Bin card is maintained inside the stores and stores ledger is maintained outside the stores. Bin card is maintained by the stores department, but the stores ledger is maintained by the accounts department. The postings are done on the bin card before the transaction takes place, but the postings are made in the stores ledger after the transactions have taken place. Then each transaction is individually posted in bin card, but sometimes in stores ledger it can be collectively posted or periodically posted. Then the stock record will be in a very correct sense, accurate sense, but it is said to be a stock control record. The stores ledger is said to be a stock control record. Then the bin card cannot supply the inventory value for the preparation of the final accounts, but the stores ledger can give the accurate inventory value for the preparation of the final accounts, that is the closing stock and the opening stock of the stores. So these are all the major differences between the bin card and a stores ledger. So we have main two differences. First one is the quantity alone is entered in bin card, quantity and value is entered in bin card. The second stores ledger. Next one is the bin card is maintained inside the stores, but the stores ledger is maintained after the transaction takes place, and it is outside the stores. Next we come to the stock identification card. These cards are kept in stores against each bin or each rack where the actual stocks are kept in to identify the materials. This information card may contain the material code number and the full description of the materials and the respective store's ledger folio and also the bin card number. So this store's identification card will be a very small slip containing the code number, name of the material, description and specification of the materials, and also the bin number and the store's ledger folio number. Next comes the materials received note. When materials are passed on to the stores after the proper verification and approval by the inspection authority, the materials and supplies are taken into stock through a document called as materials received note or goods received note. This document is prepared by the receiving department, relevant information being taken from the party's invoice or the delivery challan. They are sent to the inspection department for approval, and after the approval has been received from the inspection department, it is passed on to the appropriate authority for the verification, and once again it is forwarded to the accounts department for recording and accounting of materials. So the specimen of the receipt note is here. Where the receipt note is prepared by the storekeeper, he has to comply with a certain information. First one is the date of the receipt, the number of the item, then the received at the place where it has been received, name of the supplier, address of the supplier, the code number of the item, the description and the specification of the item, the quantity received, the condition, whether it is in a good condition or a damaged condition, then purchase order number, the date of the purchase order, then who is the person in charge of receiving. He has to sign it, received by, and once again the person in charge of checking the quality must sign by writing it as checked by. Then it has to be signed by a person who has to approve it, so approved by. So three persons have to sign. One is the person who is receiving, another is the person who is checking the quality, and third one will be the approver of the goods that has been received in. The next is the material requisition slip. Whenever the materials are required by the production departments, a document known as material requisition slip is sent to the stores, and the store should verify the following in this connection. Material requisition slip must be signed by the authorized person in the production departments. The materials required should contain the relevant information, namely the code number, the description, the specification, the quantity required, etc. Then the 3 copies of this requisition slip should be prepared, and the first copy should be sent to the issuing authority. The second copy is meant for the store's record, and the third copy is for the accounting for the stores. So the specimen of the material requisition slip consists of the following: the number of the requisition slip, then the date of the requisition slip, then copy to the production, stores and accounts department, then required for. So we have to write about the job number or the product number, then the code number of the materials, the description of the materials, the quantity required and the quantity issued, the rate, the amount and the remarks. And once again it should be signed by 3 persons. First person is the person who is making a requisition required by. The person who is receiving, so the receiving person has to sign as received by. Then the person who is issuing must sign as issued by. So material requisition slip will be given by the production departments as per the production requirements, and it must be sent to the stores having 3 copies. Next one is the materials returned note. When the materials are not required by the production departments, they are returned to the stores using a document called as materials returned note. Then the specimen must say that the name of the department which is returning, then return to. The return to means sometimes it will be returned to the stores, or sometimes it will be returned to the other production departments to avoid the time for transportation. So we can save the time. Say for example, if X department is having excess material, it need not return it to the stores, and the stores will issue it to the Y. So X can directly give to Y when the Y is in need of those materials. So return to. So we have to write either it is returned to the another production department or a service department, or it is given to the stores itself. So the number of the returned note MRN will be given, and the date of the return, then from where, from the job number or the product number where it has been returned, then the code number of the materials, description of the materials, the quantity of the materials, a rate with the amount, and again the remarks should also be given. Once again it will be signed by 3 persons. One is the person who is actually returning, and the person who is actually receiving it, and the other person has to sign who is in charge of the accounts. Next is the material transfer note. Material transfer note is a note that is transferred from one department to the another department, and this is prepared by the department which is transferring the materials, and sometimes it is given to the stores or to the accounts. A copy should be given to the accounts department, and the specimen form will be the name of the department which is transferring, and again the number, then the person, the date, the department which is receiving the materials, then the code number of the materials, description, quantity transferred, the rate, the amount and the remarks. And once again it must be signed by the person who is transferring, the person who is receiving and the accounts person. That is the person who is in charge for the accounting for the materials that has been transferred. So materials accounting will include the main aspects as the bin card, the stores ledger, stock identification card, materials received note, material requisition slip, materials return slip and materials transfer note. So these are all the major records and documents which are maintained for the stores accounting. These materials will give you updated information regarding the levels of inventories and will have an effective control over the inventories by the storekeeper. Thank you.